Gods do not die easily, nor do they perish cleanly. The death of a deity shakes the firmaments of existence, and all the worlds of spirits and mortals tremble in the wake of such catastrophic events. Hello, I am Jon Morgantini. Thank you very much for holding in for us while we dealt with some technical issues on the side. I am Paizo's community manager and your host for today's exciting War of Immortals Kickoff stream. What is the War of Immortals, you might be asking yourself? Well, it's what its name implies, a war between immortals precipitated by the God's Reign, a cataclysm of mythic proportions in which one of Pathfinder's core 20 deities will die, and their blood and divine power will literally rain down upon the mortals below, bestowing upon them mythic power and a fraction of that god's now stolen immortality. The War of Immortals event will span months of product releases beginning in July and change the setting forever. Ripples from this event will still be seen for years to come, and we're already planning further storylines that build directly on the prolonged period of conflict that follows the God's Reign, which we and the people of Golarion will refer to as the War of Immortals. Be sure to stick around until the end of the stream for a very exciting announcement related to the long-term effects. But before we get into those effects, let's have a look at the immediate effects. At the center of the War of Immortals meta event is the aptly named hardcover release, War of Immortals, which arrives in October. To talk more about this exciting release and the content players can hope to find within, I'm joined by Paizo's managing designer, Michael Sayre.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the War of Immortals. As some of you may have noticed, the God of Sound was the first victim of this event. But fortunately, we're not going to dwell on that too much longer. In this book, we're going to explore all kinds of cool things that are related to this precipitating event. You see what I did there? Because it's the God's Reign. And provide y'all with a whole deluge, I'm still doing it, of new character options for players who want to imbue their campaigns with mythic power and cool divine options. And cool divine options start with cool new classes, like Nahoa, our iconic and the mythic the iconic exemplar. He's not mythic yet in this particular piece of art, though you'll get to see what he might look like as he continues on his journey through the book, The War of Immortals. There is an entire narrative through line in this hardcover that explores the journey of Nahoa and the iconic animist, Samo, who I think should be appearing in front of you right about now since I said the keyword. As they travel from the lands of the Linorum Kings all across the continent of Avestan and down into Garoon, following a calling that is leading them into battle against a new spawn of Rovagug rampaging across the world. New spawn of Rovagug? Yeah, that's right. We've got all sorts of crazy new monsters and things to throw at you. And we've got the vicious monster Varix that was, who you'll see in this art piece depicting the Battle of Shatterskull Rest. You might be thinking, Varix, maybe I've heard that name before, because I'm really into Paizo's lore, and that is a name that has come up. Yeah, Varix the Despoiler used to be an orc god. Then he delved a little too deep, spent too much time close to Rovagug's imprisonment, and as he crawled away, despoiled himself, and was exposed to the God's Reign, he turned into this horrific monstrosity that is a major creature, kind of leading into a lot of the events and causing some of the changes that you're going to see in this world. But Varix isn't the only god who dies. Of course he isn't, you say. This is what we tuned in to see. Yet, because you see, several deities are going to die in the course of these events, including one of my personal favorites, who I was incredibly sad to murder, Starovan the Dragon Eagle. See, when the God's Reign happens, there are bits and pieces of Redacted that fall in various places, and one of those places is the World Wound. So the Dragon Eagle flies in and snatches up one of these Redacted, raises it up where it cannot cause further harm or be used by the demons gathering around the World Wound to reopen it, and explodes in a giant prism of rainbows that everybody in Sarkoris sees. And you're going to find more and more events like that, and you're going to participate in a ton of events like that in the adventures that we have coming up. And all of these adventures and stories that you're going to tell, they are going to be enabled by all kinds of mechanics and new tools that we bring into play here, which you're going to see in this book with this amazing cover for the War of Immortals. Whoa, what's that you're hopefully saying right now? That is Suzuriel, the Apocalypse Rider of War, on her badass steed, doing what the Apocalypse Rider of War does best and getting involved in a war. This scene that you see with our iconics here actually does take place in the book, because more and more of these gods and deities, they're getting directly involved in things on Galarian in a way that they haven't in a while, since another dead deity used to be kicking around on the surface of the world and doing his thing. That's all I've got for you at the moment. I will be back to talk a little bit more about some of the other surprises we've got coming your way, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and toss it to Jon so that Jon can introduce you to our next panelist.
Thanks, Mike. The fallout from God's Reign and the events of the War of Immortals aren't going to be constrained to just the hardcover, however. And a number of our published adventures are also going to explore the after effects of this event and how it affects the setting. To talk more about the first couple of them, because yes, there's more than a couple, I'm pleased to welcome Pathfinder Narrative Creative Director James Jacobs. James, you're muted.
There's a mute button? Huh. Oh, boy. Hey, Jon, thanks for the introduction. Sorry about that. Hey, everybody. We do have a lot of adventures coming up, and it's pretty exciting. We haven't been able to talk about these yet, really. But yeah, the first of the adventures that we're going to be releasing is in July. It's our first hardcover standalone module, Pray for Death. Starting with this volume, in fact, all of our standalone adventures are going to be hardcovers and at least 128 pages. So we're going to be able to do longer adventures that have more of a chance to tell their stories or investigate things. Sort of like, I guess, what we did with the remaster of Crown of the Kobold King. So I guess technically this isn't our first hardcover. It's our first brand new hardcover module. Anyway, so Pray for Death. This is the adventure where the player characters play Red Mantis assassins. And so you're going to be playing assassins sent out into the world to assassinate somebody important. And I'm not going to do too many spoilers. You'll figure this out pretty soon. It's a pretty high level adventure path, or adventure, a standalone adventure. You will end up at about 17th level at the end of it. And you'll want to check this one out for sure. I'm not saying exactly why this is part of the War of the Immortals storyline, but rest assured, it very much is. And so we've got Chayek, of course, is one of the big deals for the Red Mantis assassins, and he's not the god we're killing off. He's not one of the core deities anyway. So anyway, so Pray for Death will be out pretty soon. That'll be the kind of the kickoff for this whole storyline that we're going to be doing. And then after that, we're going to be transitioning over to the adventure path line. I've seen a lot of people assuming that we're going to be doing just one adventure path for the War of Immortals. It's a bigger storyline than that. It's just like back in the old days when we did Rise of the Rune Lords. Then we went on and did Shattered Star and Return of the Rune Lords and other stuff. And this is an event that is going to shake the world so fundamentally and change everything in a way that is so significant that we're going to continue doing more and more stories about the War of Immortals and the fallout of what's going on. And the first one of those that is going to impact this is the Curtain Call Adventure Path. This one launches in July. First volume is called Stage Fright. And this adventure path starts out before all of that stuff is going on. And the plot line here is sort of a little bit more whimsical than we normally do for adventures. You'll see my background here is actually some art from one of the second volume where you've got Flumbus here offering some dinosaur diplomacy up to a curious Spinosaurus. But Curtain Call is the adventure path where your characters put on an opera based on the adventure you went on when you're first to 10th level. And so there's a lot of diplomacy and stuff going on. It's a 3-part adventure path that debuts at Gen Con and wraps up in September. And it kind of builds up toward what we're going along with the War of Immortals and God's Reign. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but not only does Redacted have what is going to happen to that redacted individual during this adventure, other gods are going to be involved in this whole thing in ways, because this is a big deal. It's going to affect deities in all sorts of different ways. And your high-level player characters are going to be on screen interacting with a lot of these deities in ways that are going to be pretty fun. Anyway, so that's Curtain Call. It's also not the only adventure path that we're doing for this. Like I said before, we're also starting an adventure in October, an adventure path called Triumph of the Tusk. This is a lower level adventure path, goes from, I believe, 3rd to 11th level. This adventure path is we're just brand new announcing it right here. This is an adventure path where the player characters are in the hold of Belkzen, and they're dealing with a lot of the fallout and situations that arise from the shakeup that we were talking about earlier with some of the orc deities dying and everything kind of changing around. So that's going to be a fun adventure to check out that really delves into the aftermath of God's Reign and all of that event. That will be the adventure pass pretty much. Going forward, one thing that I do want to mention also is these first two adventure paths, Curtain Call and Triumph of the Tusk, are really focusing on the narrative elements of War of Immortals, the death of the god and all of the stuff going on. They're not specifically built to be for mythic characters. We are going to get around to doing mythic adventures at some point. I'm excited to do that sort of thing. But like I said before, this is not something we're just going to do once and then move on. These are going to be themes that we're going to be continuing exploring throughout the next year and beyond that. So to find out more, you're just going to have to stay tuned and find out more. So I guess that's pretty much all I've got to tease about the adventures that we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. Back to you, John.
Thanks, James. I cannot wait to play those or throw them at my players or a combination of both. Now, this next tease isn't new. It's closer to returning. It's a product that we will give Pathfinder fans yet another way to experience the storyline for War of Immortals. To chat about fiction, I'm joined by our Director of Brand Strategy, Mark Moreland.
We are being cursed by the god of sound, which we really need to invent at this point, because clearly we're getting a sign from the gods that that's a thing that we got to worry about. Anyway, so longtime Pathfinder fans likely remember the Pathfinder Tales line of novels that we published between 2010 and 2017. In over 36 novels, Pathfinder Tales presented adventurers and anti-heroes of the author's creation, fighting evil or skirting the line themselves. And from this rogues gallery emerged a number of fan favorites who returned for a series of adventures. Varian Jagari and his loyal bodyguard Radovan, Torius Vin and the crew of the pirate ship Stargazer, the charlatan Roderick and his intelligent sword Hrim, the former Nidalee Shadowcaller ICM, and more. What these books allowed us to do for the first time was to tell stories set in the Age of Lost Omens that had protagonists. And through these characters, explore the setting with a sense of excitement an RPG rulebook just can't provide. Now, I'm overjoyed to announce the return of Pathfinder novels in the form of God's Reign by Leanne Merciel that will release this November. Now, unlike prior Pathfinder novels, God's Reign will be a hardcover release for the optimal sensory experience of reading, and it will feature a few familiar faces among its core adventuring party. The Pathfinder iconics Amiri, Ezrin, Kyra, and Merciel. Over the course of God's Reign, these beloved Pathfinder characters will witness the God's Reign, and at least one of them will gain mythic power in the process. In a race against powerful rivals set on releasing an existential threat upon the world, Kyra and friends will have to use every tool at their disposal, including first-hand blessings from one of the surviving core deities, to prevent an event, an even greater disaster than the mere death of a god or a few gods. In anticipation of God's Reign's release, we'll be publishing 2 electronic books as preludes in September and October. The first of these is one many viewers of this stream will likely already be familiar with, The God's Reign Prophecies by Aaron Roberts. While the bulk of this content is available now on the Paizo blog, the ebook will include exclusive new content to further the mystery of the prophecies and explore the enigmatic seer who penned them. In October, we'll release Before the God's Reign, a collection of short stories and flash fiction featuring the 4 iconic characters at the novel's heart. Readers who are unfamiliar with the iconics or the Pathfinder setting can pick up this ebook to get to know Amiri, Ezrin, Kyra, and Merciel through reprinted and new material designed to bring them up to speed on these beloved characters. That's all that I've got. So I'll toss it back to you, Jon, and we'll see what else is next. I think that's all that everyone came here to learn, right? We're good now that we have that announcement. People are good to go.
I swear, this is a sign from the universe. I don't know what it is, but yeah, that's probably everything that everyone's here for. So I was just gonna head down to the local supermarket and grab a sandwich. But actually, seriously, before you bring out the pitchforks, there's a lot that's going to be shaking up the status quo in the Lost Omens setting. To give us the down low on what's going to be happening, let's bring on Pathfinder Rules and Lore Creative Director Luis Loza.
Hello, everybody. Guess who's not muted this time around? Everyone else seemed to like really pick up the pace. I know we had tech issues, and it seems like we are kind of caught up. So that means I can take my time now, right? I can slow down. No one's really waiting on anything. We'd have a nice, chill little time. No, actually, no. Let's talk about something you probably already know about. Let's go to our first slide here. It's the cover for a nice little book called Lost Omens: Divine Mysteries. With all this talk about gods dying and things changing, some of you are jumping in for the first time with the Lost Omen setting and learning who these gods are, only to see maybe some of them die immediately after. So we figured we'd put a book together to collect as much information about the gods as we could, and present all of that to you and show you, who these gods are, what they're all about, their stats if you're a cleric, maybe give you some cool options for worshiping them and all that. But also there's the opportunity to really learn more about the setting. So we sent out one of our most important figures. If we want to go to our next slide, a little Nasoi by the name of Yavali, and she's been tasked with doing all this work, collecting all of this here for us, and really doing the work of figuring out who these gods are and learning about all of these things. She's been tasked by Pharasma to learn what she can as she's doing kind of her, we'll call it like her grad school thesis to graduate to become a full-on psychopomp that then helps people out in the afterlife. And she's learned a lot of things. Not only is she learning who gods are, she's learned, who someone like Asmodeus is, or who someone like Desna is. Two gods who are already safe, so don't even look into that. But she's also learned some additional secrets. If we go into our next slide, she's trying to figure out just how gods work and maybe learning some of these secrets about the gods, right? What causes a god to happen? How does a mortal become a god? And we're seeing here on the screen probably one of the most notable instances of this happening. This is Iomedae touching the Starstone. And while we're not going to tell you exactly what happens when you touch the Starstone, we're going to start hinting at it. We're going to start peeking just a little bit behind the curtain to understand how gods work. There's a lot of in-world essays written by Yavali that kind of explain what she's figured out as best as she understands how a god works. And from there, of course, she's also gone on and met lots of different gods. If we go to our next slide, we can see that she actually, probably against standards and regulations for Pharasma's court, has been interacting with some of these gods. She's talked with someone like Chaldira here and some of the other gods along the world. And is getting a chance to really understand who these gods are. And we're hoping that through her work, you'll be able to read this book and also understand who the gods are. But along the way, she's also met a lot of new faces. This next slide gives us just a couple of the new faces that Yavali has met along the way. We have new gods like Aleph, who is a god of darkness, but more benevolent than you're kind of used to seeing with darkness. There's also, on the opposite side, Nin, one of our new vampire gods, who is into a lot of strange things with vampires, like figuring out how to remove their weaknesses. Like eventually, with enough time, Nin's followers can figure out how to walk out in the sun. We also have newer gods that have ascended, like Maja Firehair, who is up there among the ranks of the Orc pantheon to offer guidance and support through her own means. And then we also have even really interesting gods like Ziar Tovan, who is a living weapon, who is a god and is all about weapons and battle and stuff like that, who's just kind of more, we get to see some really interesting stuff out there with the kind of things here. So lots of cool gods that Yavali gets to meet, lots of cool gods that she gets to introduce you to, and lots of cool things you get to learn along the way. But of course, I mentioned earlier, there's character options, and I think my next slide has a little hint as to what might be coming in this book here. We have 3 different character options being showcased here. One is the Battle Harbinger, which is a new class archetype for clerics. The Battle Harbinger is all about battle, and you lose a little bit of spellcasting capability to make up for really cool capability in battle. We have a new archetype, the Rivathun Emissary, who's all about contacting spirits, ancestors, things like that, and tapping into divine powers through means that aren't just through that of a god. And we also have the Palatine Detective, who works with the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye, and interesting things have been afoot with the Esoteric Order, and as of late, they have access to divine power in really strange and unique ways that we'll talk about more in the future. But that is another class archetype for the investigator, who gets access to spell casting through own unique, mysterious ways. And I think that's all the slides I have for today. We also have, of course, other stuff happening in the Lost Omens line. You might have just seen Tiansha World Guide. Tiansha Character Guide will be coming out in a couple of months after that. And Divine Mysteries will be coming out later this year, around November. And we can then from there go on and explore and see what happens to the rest of the setting with things like that. But that is the big thing. We're talking all about gods. Let's give you another god book, and let's look forward to that. But I think that's all I have to talk about for today. So I'm going to send it back to Jon. There might be 1 or 2 other things we want to mention before we go.
I don't know. I feel like we've had such a full and complete stream by this point. I can't imagine what anybody else would want to talk about. That's all the products that we have to discuss for today's stream, but there's going to be a lot more fallout from God's Reign and War of the Immortals. We have many more things to talk about in the future as they progress. But there's another exciting announcement that I'm really glad to finally get out in the open. And I think, Mike, you might have something that you want to say to the people.
Yeah, I certainly do. So we've talked about the God's Reign and the War of Immortals, but what is the natural fallout of immortals fighting, right? Well, when gods start fighting each other, their followers also have a tendency to start fighting, and people all over the world tend to get sucked into encounters like this. So we are going to be playtesting 2 new classes coming to the game in 2025. And we're going to start playtesting them on Monday, April 29th, in just under 2 weeks. What are they? They are the intelligent and clever commander and the beefy and heavily armored guardian. You are going to get a chance to check out these new entries on the front lines of battle in the very near future. That I think is maybe everything, right? We told them that this was the most exciting thing we had to talk about. I can't think of anything else. Oh, okay.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
There was one thing. We did a poll, and I'm pretty sure that we have a piece of art for the poll if we wanted to bring up that wonderful pie chart for data nerds. So as you can see, you're not looking at me right now. This is the results of a poll. 25%. 25% of you think that for some reason Lamashtu is in danger. That's I was actually very proud. We had over 4,000 responses. Thank you very much. I am putting those numbers very tucked away very safely. As your community engagement specialist, it was a pleasure to see all of you voting and caring so much about what terrible thing might befall a specific deity, whether it's a banana on the top of the stairs, or it's getting out of bed wrong and tweaking their back. You know, these things happen. You get rolled. What?
That's what got Aaron.
Oh, that's what got Aaron. It was the bananas. I'm curious now if anyone's opinions have changed. So let's pump your opinions into chat for a second, because this is what they call vamping, kids. I am delaying things intentionally to be a little bit of a jerk. So
Also, if you give me any of the gods' names in chat, I have a counter that will tell you how many times you've said it. But you do have to spell them correctly.
Amazing technology.
is there anything that anyone else, this is your last chance, because we're going to be wrapping up the stream here in a second.
Yeah, I talked about setting stuff, and we were rushed earlier, but now there's a second. War of Immortals features a setting chapter, doesn't it, Mike?
It does, yeah. And I hear it was written by a few really cool people. Michelle Y. Kim, who was recently hired as an adventure developer here at Paizo. This guy, Luis Loza, who I've known for a while, pretty talented creative director. I think, what was that guy's name? Eric Mona. I think he even wrote some of that setting chapter as well, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to learn a little bit about the ramifications to the setting, you can look forward to that in War of Immortals as well. But yeah, I think that covers everything I wanted to say.
Oh, have I done enough vamping? Or these? I mean, I feel like chat's literally about to vibrate through the internet and strangle me.
I think
So
for your own safety, I think you need
yes.
to get it off.
Yeah,
Don't perceive me on the internet. All right. If you're all ready, here we go. Giving a drum roll, and the answer is
it's live.
Do we all say it at once?
Gorum.
Gorum.
Gorum will be the one dying.
Hey, what's that? What's that coming out of his chest? What the heck is that?
I don't know. I guess people have to wait and find out, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Doesn't
He
look
needs
like something
a
you walk
wider
off.
tie to cover things up.
I hope he prepared mending this morning.
Yes, all right. It is Gorum, our Lord and Iron himself. Now that we've gotten that out of our system, the hows, the whys, the whens, all of this is yet to come. We're not that nice. But know that it's going to be on screen at your tables, and not just around the imaginary digital conference tables that we have here at Paizo being fully remote. How does Gorum's death impact your player characters? How is Amiri gonna cope? Probably with punching something. What about the orcs of Belkzen? And what will the god's reign of his blood, divine essence, and shards of armor leave in their wake upon Galarian? You're just gonna have to keep playing to find out. Thank you very much for joining us on this stream and through the technical difficulties. The hype has been amazing to watch. You all have been super into this whole thing and reading through the God's Reign prophecies and all of your theory crafting and postulating. We wouldn't be able to do any of this if you weren't so invested and so excited. Some members of our community have set up a God's Reign post-game stream on the We're Stronger Together channel. So we're going to be rating them in just a second. So if you want to geek out about the news, continue to speculate, stick around, talk here in chat, talk on the Discords, talk in the forums, and we will all be right there with you having so much fun. On behalf of Mike, James, Mark, and Luis, and the rest of Paizo, I've been Jon Morgantini, your community and social media manager. Have a good one.